Welcome to the Rave Festival live in Bulgaria and online wherever you are in the world.
The first thing that I want to do is share with you my vision of the era of the individual. I've loved hearing everyone's different take and vision on what we're moving into. And you'll notice that, again, it is the cross of the sleeping phoenix, but in BG5, we call it the era of the individual because that's really what we're moving into. And then I'm going to talk about the shifting of the ages and how the shifting of the ages affects business. And then we're going to take a look at sort of the big picture, and then we're going to focus in on, okay, what does that mean for me as an individual? So taking a look at our profit centers. And then at the end, I'm going to be doing a profit by being you exercise to get you aligned with your own individual profit potential. And then we'll have time for question and answer. So that is what we're going to be taking a look at today. So I want to start with my vision of what the era of the individual is all about. Now, when you take a look at my design, I feel like I'm very deeply connected to the direction of the new era. So what I've put up here are the locks and the keys. And one of the things that you'll see is that I have all of the locks and all of the keys of direction. I also have the 55 of spirit and the 59 of achieving union within my design as well. So I have this deep feeling or insight of what is coming up or what is next. And I can also see what I'm not supposed to see. That's what Ra often talked about with this particular variable and having the peripheral vision and perception. But yet I can also strategically figure out what the next steps are. So I really feel like what we are moving into is actually something quite incredible. And I love this logo that you have for the Human Design Rave Festival because it really speaks to what we are moving into. We have really the start codon, the start of something new in trait 41. And of course, tomorrow we're going to step into the Rave New Year. So we're really stepping into something big. And this next year is really, as I see it, the tipping point between the era of planning and the era of the individual, where things are going to start shifting dramatically. And I think dramatically in a good way, although there is going to be a little bit of a struggle along the way. Now, again, we have this magnetic monopole. The magnetic monopole is all about love and direction. It is what shifts the wheel. And I love this symbol. When I first saw this symbol, my main name is Karen Elizabeth Logison. I'm like, oh, that would be a great logo because it has the K, the E, and the L all in there. And I at first, this is before I dived in to what this means, and I was like, huh, that would be a great logo. And then I recognized that if you tip it on its side, one of the things that you'll recognize, it actually represents BG5. It actually is base group 5. There are 5 bases, and this is the 5th base. It represents the 5th base. So the 5 bases, again, the bases is the entry frequency. And one of the things that Ra often spoke about is that Rave will naturally operate in pentas. And so we as humans and transitists need to catch up, need to understand how do we work together. Now, again, we've a lot of human design has been focused on our individual transformation. And the individual transformation is absolutely necessary to be able to enter into relationships and connections and teams and organizations in a completely different way. But what I see for the future is that it is all about connecting. It is all about working together. And Natalie did an amazing, amazing job at the OC16 experience. And Ewan also introduced you to BG5. And so one of the things to recognize is that even if we understand who we are as an individual, It's a whole different ball game when we start working with in teams. It's a whole different ball game when we start working together. And so this is part of what I see in the era of the individuals, that even though it's very individual, we need to learn to work together in a completely different way. And this is why I think BG5 is so important moving forward into the future. And like I said, what Ra has mentioned is that the raves will naturally operate in pentas. And we just need to learn how to catch up and to be able to see what those dynamics are. And when we get to OC16 is what holds the pentas together. So I also wanted to share, so not only do I have this deep connection to the direction of the new era, it is also part of my life work theme, my incarnation cross. It is the cross of penetration. And this cross of penetration says you are on the path from rags to riches and are recognized by those higher up the ladder, aligning with higher and even mystical forces. Now, one of the things that's interesting about trait 54, and you'll notice I'll say trait instead of gate because it's BG5. One of the interesting things about trait 54 is it's the most material, yet it also is one of the most spiritual of all of the 64 traits. And so this is my life work theme, but this is also the theme within the era that we're moving into. So I want you to consider this. Part of what we're moving into is this path as humanity from rags to riches. This path of being recognized by those higher up the ladder and aligning with higher and even mystical forces. So, in many respects, it is very material, yet also very spiritual as well. In many respects, I see it as, in a sense, bringing heaven to earth, really finding that spirituality within the material world. Now, oftentimes when we take a look at 54, this is about ambition. This is about drive. We can see ambition and drive as also something that's very selfish. However, 54 is one of the traits that is a tribal trait of this new era. And the 54 actually does not work correctly if the ambition does not support everyone. So, one of the things about trait 54 is it also levels the playing field for others to compete on equal terms. And for myself with 54, I can feel that drive, that need to rise up. But I have this quote from John F. Kennedy that I really love, that I think also not only represents for myself my life work theme, but I think it's also what we're moving towards, if you will, as humanity. It is, neither captain nor master of ships do I aspire to be, but the rising tide that raises all ships, if that be within my kin. And so this is an opportunity for all of us to rise up and all of us to be great. Now, let's compare this to where we've been. Where we've been in the era of planning. This is a cartoon that I often use in my training as well, because this is really what the era of the era of planning has been all about. In a sense, we have this little puzzle piece that's so happy and grows up and graduates, and then has to go into the workforce, and in many respects has to sacrifice themselves, has to cut off a part of themselves just to fit in. And I want you to think of your own life and your own career and what you have done there out in the world for work and for jobs in the past. And oftentimes there's a part of you that doesn't really get recognized or really get fulfilled. And when we take a look at the era of planning, it's a lot about sacrificing ourselves for the good of the tribe. We become a slave to the system. And you're limited. We're focused on the details without seeing the big picture. So things have been very compartmentalized, especially if you work in a large organization or company. You never really see the whole big picture. You're just doing your little part, and you're just more like a cog in the wheel. And you don't really see the bigger picture. You have to often pretend to be someone that you're not, or literally cutting off a part of yourself just so that you'll fit in with everyone else. And you're often developing skills that can be quote unquote used by others. And you're working alone, right? The 40, working alone to provide for everyone else. So this is where we've been. This is where we've been in the era of planning. These next couple years are really the turning point, the shifting point where we're really moving out of the era of planning, and we've really felt the era of planning, especially since the pandemic and everything else that has happened. And we're now this is really the precipice or the turning point, if you will, in stepping into what the era of the individual is all about. Now, as we enter into the era of the individual, we could feel like it's a kind of selfish era with so much individuality. And this is often what I've heard. It's every man or woman for themselves. It's very selfish. It is very tuned into who you are as an individual. However, what if selfish really means self-like? Meaning, self and the ish, right? If when you add ish at the end of something, it's being like. So what if selfish is really being self-like, being yourself, and not only fully being ourselves, but the core essence of the era is trait 55. 55 is the abundance of spirit. So once again, tapping into, in a sense, that spiritual realm, that spiritual abundance. And it's grounded by trait 59. Trait 59 is all about achieving union. Again, these are two traits that are also in my design that I'm quite familiar with. And when you take a look at trait 55 and quality 6, which is what we're moving into, this is the possibility of finding spirit through materialism. As I mentioned before, it's like bringing heaven to earth. And I know my view may be a lot different than a lot of what you have seen or heard, but I really find this to be an era that we're moving into that is actually very, very freeing. So it is the abundance of our individual spirit that is grounded by achieving union. Achieving union in the 59. This is about intimacy. So how we are abundant in our spirit is in how we connect and support each other, right? The 59 and the 54 are the two tribal traits that really hold us together or hold the tribe piece together. And so I think we're need to learn how to connect and how to work with each other in a completely different way. Now, again, we look at it as a selfish era, and oftentimes we take a look, for example, this pure manifesting generator strength, we call it the express builder, this 34, we often take a look at the 34 as this is personal power. We think of that also as being very selfish. However, this is about using our energy properly in the now. So, to ground the abundance of our individual spirit by achieving union, we need to use our energy properly in the now. Trait 34 of power is that power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. So once again, the 54, we can see it as selfish, but if it's not serving the tribe, it doesn't work. Same thing with trait 34. The power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. When you're truly yourself, but you're utilizing your energy to serve the common good. And trait 20 of the now is really the only time that actually exists, right? This present moment is really what is there, not the past, not the future. It is now. So being present and using our energy in the now is really key. And returning back to the 54 is also the pressure for the material way. again, creating this connection of both the spiritual and the material. So this is the material way that moves from the 54 through to the 32 to the 44 to the 26 to the 21, ultimately getting expressed in the 45. Right? The 54 wants to turn around and become the 45. This is the rising up. Now, again, the 54 is the pressure. It's the pressure for the material way. And yet, again, the 54 can be both the most material and also the most spiritual as well. When we take a look at the 54 in quality six, this is the ingrained responsibility in terms of maintaining security and personal identity that will naturally restrict its relationships to ones that are mutually beneficial. So oftentimes, again, with BG5, with OC16, with the WA, with the Penta, there is often this conception that it's very controlling, it's very dominating, it's very conditioning. And yes, it is. However, when you're aligned to the right forces, when you're aligned to the right people, when you're working together correctly, you can take advantage of the energy instead of it and take advantage of also the conditioning as opposed to being lost in the crowd, as opposed to having to work really hard to and sacrificing yourself for the good of the tribe. So part of being an individual is recognizing where we fit in, where we belong. Do we belong in working solo? Do we belong working in partnership? Do we belong working in small groups? Do we belong working in large groups? Also in a large group. And Natalie has talked about this, it takes advantage of all 64 traits. So even if you don't have an OC16 strength, there still is a role to play. And we need to work together in, again, a completely different way. And when you recognize the role that you have to play, and when you're around people that inspire you, that feel good, and when those relationships are mutually beneficial, meaning that it's a win, 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 win for everyone. Everyone feels good and everyone has the ability to rise up. Now, as we take a look at the other traits that make up this era of the individual, this is a time again to find spirit in the material. Again, bringing heaven to earth. We're beginning something completely new. And I think as we continue to move forward, we're going to see that this is so different than anything we've ever known, anything that we've ever um, been used to or have seen before. It's going to be something completely different that we can't even get our minds around yet. And it will be necessary to trust our intuitive clarity, this trait 57, our intuitive clarity to be able to navigate through these crazy shifting times as things shift and things change. And we'll need to wake up, trait 51, be initiated in a completely different way of doing things. Now, the mirror of the material way, which we have the pressure in the 54, the mirror is the mystical way. And what's interesting is we also have two traits in the mystical journey that are part of this new era. This is the evolutionary mutation of the tribe. We can see it starts with this mystical journey. You can see it's the mirror to the 54, starts in the 19 and moves to the 49. And again, I'm going to be using BG5 terms. So it starts with resources, the 1949. This is sensitivity to the needs of the tribe and sacrificing oneself for the good of the tribe. These are the marriage contracts. These are this is, what spirituality has been in the past, which is all about religions. It's starting to break down, and we can see it. Then we have community, the 3740. This is the bridge. This is the background frequency of the era of planning that is fading away. And how you profit by being you and this new arena of career and business is doing what you love, loving what you do, aligning your frequency which will allow you to connect with the people that you're actually naturally designed to connect with, that you can work together as a family with a future, and that we're all in it together. And we're all in it together as humanity. And now that we've tapped into who we are as individuals, it's now time to take a look at how we can work together in a completely different way. How we can honor each other's uniqueness, that each of us have our own place of personal power, that we're recognized, that we're accepted, that we're a part of the whole. If you take a look at a puzzle and one piece of the puzzle is missing, the puzzle is not complete. Each and every one of you has a reason, has a purpose, has a unique way of delivering your wisdom to those around you. When you are aligned with the proper frequency, that's when everything flows. And if everything is energy, the more we give out the energy, the more we are able to give what our gifts and talents are fully who we are, the more we can get that energy back. And so thank you all very much. It has been my pleasure to guide you in this How to Profit by Being You in the Shifting Landscape of Career and Business.
Thank you for being with us on this journey at the Human Design Rave Festival 2024.